We are live now.
All right. We are live. We should start, no? Okay. Hello and welcome to Simplified. Today we are not just alive, we are live. Hello, YouTube fam, and indeed the wide world out there. Now, in case some of you landed up on this stream, you might have misspelled simplified, or you might have been looking for an explanation of the movie 300 and accidentally landed up over here. Simplified is a podcast that breaks down complex things around us into simple language so that the hosts can understand them. That's right. Simplified is actually the only podcast in the world where the hosts are the target audience. Now, Simplified has four hosts, as you can see, all of whom are from below the Vindhyas. Indeed, many listeners have told us that we are like a good South Indian meal. So, in that spirit, let me introduce your panel to you. Coming in first is Srikeit, a man who I feel is like a dosha. And by that, I mean he has many avatars. Once upon a time, he was thin like a sada dosha. We used to call him skinny. Sometimes he gets emotionally fragile, like a ghee roast. Sometimes he's so sorted in life, we call him, Are, Sriket, you are set, da, set. Sometimes he's the one with all the goss, so we call him masala dosha. But now, mostly, he is well traveled and found all over the world, much like our humble dosa itself. In fact, he doesn't refer to himself as a dosa anymore, but he calls himself the anglicized version, a crispy rice crepe. I think that's full of crap. So much so that I need to have a drink. Where you ask, oh, it doesn't matter as long as I have the drink with Sriket. After all, what goes better with dosha than sambar? Say hi.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
wow. Yeah, that took a journey, didn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Next in our Sadhya is Tony, who is like Upma. By that I mean half of Twitter love him, the other half hates him. He always gives his opinion raw. ah. Uh, a few months
Yeah.
back, he told us he was portly, but he's been working on getting fitter. So now he jokes and says he's half fat. But I like to look at the glass half full, so I called him semi lean or semo lean.
You what the hell?
I
Oh
asked
my
him if he
God.
would be
In
offended.
fact,
What?
no, my dad's and mom's name is Sebi and Lena. So, like, yeah,
Oh,
Oh wow.
wow.
It's
Semi.
meant to
Wow.
be.
Wow. I asked him, I asked Tony before this recording if he would be offended if I said that, like Upma, he's just a
no,
British
you did.
invention to wean the rest of India off rice. And then he said, haha, Chuck, don't be vermicelli. Tony Sebastian, ladies and gentlemen. And lastly, there is Narendra Shenoy, who, as long-time listeners of Simplified know, traditionally ends the episode. So then the analogy to ask is Naren the paisam or is Naren the filter coffee? Is he maddeningly sweet or is he piping hot? Does he spike your glucose or does he keep you awake at night? Is he gay or is he a wicketkeeper batsman? By which I mean, is he Keir or is he Kinton decoction?
Yo, what the
Oh,
I
Wow.
ran out of time, as you
Okay,
can see by the time.
Chuck,
So
sorry.
whether he's Paisam or whether he's caffeine, we know he's awesome and fine. So here is Narendra Shenoy.
Wow. Brilliant.
Wow.
And
Brilliant.
I'm Chuck.
Too
I'm the
much.
banana. I like to think of myself as the banana leaf that holds all of you.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
Wow.
Chuck, but I
Not
need to
the
say two things. You said Sriket came first, and I was reminded of that amazing old age pun joke, which is that, and Jesus said, "Come forth and claim the kingdom of heaven." And Paul finished fifth, and he won a toaster.
toaster. It's one of the most glorious jokes.
And
Won a
also,
toaster.
how can you speak about dosa and sambar without referencing our mutual friend Ramil's amazing dosa story,
Yeah,
which
why
is
don't you
that
go for it? Because in Malayalam it seems a lot
yeah.
nicer.
Yeah, I
By the
can't,
way,
I mean, I obviously
by
can't.
the way, if people are actually listening or watching this, please put in like
Shweta,
something
yeah,
for us to
good
answer.
job, Shweta.
Or yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
that's it's so kind
Shweta,
of you
you'll
guys.
love this next one, which is our friend Remil walked into sort of normal Udupi restaurant, and he basically said, "Cheta, can you give me dosa, but give it without pouring sambar on top?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, son. I don't have sambar. Can I give it to you without putting chutney on top?" So yeah, I think
Of course,
it's
yeah, it
a
sounds.
little complicated. It's a P plus IJ, as we call it.
Yeah, complex joke.
Yeah.
PJ,
So,
complex PJ. Yeah.
folks, congratulations on reaching 300 episodes. How do you feel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
first of all, my somebody told my wife, and she was astounded. Right, so it's like people actually listen to this guy, but actually they don't listen to me. They listen to the rest of the three of you.
Hey, Poda.
But yeah, still it's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome.
What memories do you have, Naren, of us starting Simplified? 8 years back. 2015 was 8 years ago.
Wow, that's like so.
That's a mind blowing fact, right? Simplified
Yeah.
getting to 300 is okay. 2015 being 8 years ago, now that's a mind blowing fact.
Do you remember 2015, Chuck, when you still used to watch cricket
Yeah, I
till
remember. Yeah, yeah.
that
Are the Australians
fateful day?
still-
When, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Australia is still
Are,
hammering New
are
Zealand.
New Zealand
I'm afraid
still
to say.
are New Zealand still nice guys? I don't know.
Yeah, they're the Canada of the cricket world.
Yeah. Canadians. The awesomest fact about Canadians that I found out is they every time they withdraw cash from an ATM, they have to thank the ATM. So they're too nice. They're some nice people.
But Naren, you were talking about your memories of
So
Simplified.
Shweta says that's what Wodehouse said when the 300 book was released.
Did he release 300 book? Huh? I'm not around. Anyway, that's not the point. Naren, how did you? So when I proposed the idea of Simplified to you many years ago,
Yeah.
what were your feelings? What did you think would happen?
So first of all, it was anything you do with Chuck, it's always great fun, right? The process itself is fun. So I knew that it would be absolute fun.
On what basis are you saying this, Naren? We never worked on anything together before.
No, not work, but like we used to hang around in Anand Ramchandran's place, in your house, and
Yeah, that is true.
places, and you would always be doing something. You had a guitar to play, you had some song to sing, you had some lyrics to write, something or the other.
He had a dream, a song
Yeah,
to sing.
Okay, fair enough. I'm flattered. Thank you.
And when we first started, I remember the first couple of episodes. I remember just locking up when when it's your turn to speak, every sinew in your body just freezes because you're all kind of emotions like going around like Pac-Man in your head, just struggling to come out and not able to come out. It was panic. And what I really liked about back then is that we were allowed to persist, right? Like a lot of early fans and a very intelligent IVM kept us
Yeah.
going.
No, but since this is podcasting 101, I feel like I'm the last host to come in, I think 2019 or something like that. 4 years later, I feel like I get to train the question on you guys,
Wait,
which is to say
2019 was
that
5 years ago. Okay, never mind.
4
Sorry,
years ago, da.
4 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago. But
yeah,
4 years ago.
4 year
We
transform.
should do
Yeah.
a simplified episode on arithmetic, actually.
Yeah.
No, but Chuck and
had an entire
Naren,
pandemic in the meantime, by the way.
when you started with Simplified, since this is podcasting 101, what were you hoping for? Like, what would have made you stop podcasting, and what would have made you happy? Let's say after the first 3 episodes.
I don't know. I think like just doing something. Okay, so I think 2015 was an interesting time, right? Like it was the glorious Twitter years had just gotten over, and I think in that time, I mean, we were all friends online and to a large extent offline as well, right? And we were surrounded by many people who did many interesting things, right? I've always been inspired by like Anand Ramachandran, for instance. I would like definitely count him as an early influence, not just in terms of his writing, but also just in terms of doing so many things. Krish Ashok, another huge influence. And I don't know, I for me, I think one of the very selfish reasons of starting Simplified was just, hey, nobody else in this circle is doing a podcast. Let's try this out and see if something happens, And for me, it was just wanting to give the medium a shot, and I sure as hell didn't want to do it alone. So I decided, like I said in that first post I put on Facebook, if I'm going down, I'm taking Naren down with me. So here we are, 300 episodes later, where people are still hanging on, asking whether Naren will finally write a book. But yeah, I think that was.
I just want to butt in and say hi to Ashray Nadkarni, who wants to know when will Naren finally rewrite a book. And So okay, the bad news is that I'm actually writing a book, and you'll have to read it. So yeah, a lot of disappointment coming on you. Actually, this is the book. This is
what
this what
I
you're
did.
This,
Too
this is
much.
why there was a Facebook page and a fan page and all these like
Yes.
uh,
This is
all the
I'm
hype
happy
about
of that page, by the
my
way.
2-year-old daughter can write better stories. Yeah,
But
such a
Naren, what was your sort of initial thing like when you started the
so
podcast?
my
What were you hoping for?
so our first thought was that I would get to learn about a lot of things because I sincerely believe that one of the best ways of learning something is to teach it to people, or in this case, explain it to people. So it was Simplify started as an explainer video, an explainer podcast actually, not an explainer video. And we would take at that time the Greek economic crisis was something which was quite complicated, and we tried to Chuck and I tried to sort of go into the economics of it and try and figure out what was happening, which we failed miserably. And then we realized the second best thing to do, because we both have MBA in our DNA, was to try and convince the audience that we know what we're talking about. And then we realized that hey, this is fun. It was it we realized very early on that we were terrible at explaining anything which had any interesting level of complexity. So we said screw it, and we just got better and better at it as the episodes went by. Is what I like to think.
Yeah, no, but like you have like wisdom of several years behind you, right? And you're like suddenly like, oh, it was all fun and all. But like they say, Rosa Parks had to sit for something had to be done for someone else to do it. You had to start out with scripted episodes to begin with. Till we
Yeah.
are now in episode 301, just absolutely winging it with no clue at all.
this
But
It was
the
so
initial phase is hard,
Don't
right?
say
Like
that.
I'm looking at it from the perspective of someone from our audience wanting to start a podcast, and they'll be like, oh, like they say it's very easy, but the starting part is not that easy, is it? Like you had scripted
yeah.
episodes to begin
So
with.
one of the reasons we survived is because there weren't too many podcasts out there. Otherwise, you have such excellent podcasts today, right? So you have like 10 minutes or whatever to get your listener's attention. If you're not able to grab your listener and give him or her what he or she wants, you lost that listener forever. So you really need to get your act today from the word go.
so
In our
basically
in our
yeah.
yeah, in our case, it wasn't that demanding, is what I like to think.
So
Yeah.
basically, what you're saying is, Naren, we had first mover advantage, and now everyone is stuck here because of Stockholm syndrome, right? So that
Mallard
is
syndrome. Let's
basically
call it Mallard syndrome.
Mallard syndrome. But no, I mean, Tony, on that point of like the scripting aspect of it, and I joined in. I joined in like a few months after you guys started, right? Like I joined in
Yeah.
about 6-7 months after you
No,
guys started.
2016 or some 2016
2016.
end is
good
when
year and a half, I think. One and
yeah.
a half year. 1
You
year
guys
at
started
least.
in 2015 or 2016?
2015 was when the show started. 2016 end is when you had come on.
I
I
joined
have
in, yeah.
email open in front of me. So
Yeah. So whatever.
share
The
screen
same
if you
thing. So
like.
when I joined in at that point of time, like the Naren and Chuck were still doing scripted episodes, and like the first couple of episodes, like I came in as a guest, obviously, and like once after we discussed that I was going to join in, the norm was we would basically whoever is taking responsibility of the episode of the topic would write
Will
the
write.
script for everyone.
Everyone,
So
yeah. Yeah.
So we would actually end up writing dialogues like we would write like Chuck and Naren and different color-coded dialogues which we would write on a Google sheet. I swear to God, like the first couple of episodes, I remember the Brexit series of episodes that I did at that time.
Yeah.
The first episodes that I did were around that Brexit thing. I ended up writing like full like 1 hour scripts over there, and I was like, "Damn, this is hard work." I mean, there was enthusiasm also back then, much more, and so I ended up writing like full 1 hour episodes, and we used to do that quite regularly. Afterwards, it's slowly, and that's what the devolution of that particular thing was slow. Like first, we went from writing full sentences and scripts and jokes for everyone to like, okay, we will just write bullet points and headers and everything. To like there is no Google sheet anymore. Like now it's just we stare
No,
at each
because
other's faces and decide.
yeah, no, the only reason I bring this up, right, is because like I mean from the outside you're like, how hard can podcasting be? right? And like
Yeah.
if you have a certain chemistry that you think that you can pull it off without any effort, right? Like randomly record an episode. And like 2019, we had this cricket group on WhatsApp, which is anyway like fairly like chemistry was okay, right? And then like we decided for the 2019 World Cup we will record an episode and try and see how it goes. And it was absolute chaos. And like no one was like brave enough to tell the other person that we are not doing it anymore, except that the file went completely missing and no one spoke about it for a good 2 to 3 years, right? So I think it is underrated in some senses. After you've started, once you've got into the groove, you feel like it's second nature. But I mean, someone starting off shouldn't think that it is going to be like a cakewalk from episode 1 onwards, right? I think it takes at least maybe 10
Absolutely
iterations for
not.
you to sort of feel
Absolutely not.
comfortable and find the voice of the show and yourself and stuff like that. I think that's my take at least.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it just takes time to get comfortable with each other also, right? Like, I mean, now I mean, it's almost like because we've spent the amount of time on this and like the number of years that we have talked about, we've talked on different topics together. Now, I know if I say one particular thing, I know how Chuck might react or how Tony might react or how Naren might react to that, and like we can like almost like plan our subsequent dialogues according to subsequent what we're going to say according to that and shit like that, because now we know how the other person speaks. But like back then, I mean, I swear to God, I used to remember Naren never stuck to the script. Okay, like right from the beginning, like he used to just do his own shit. Like I used to have written entire dialogues for Naren, and he's just like he'll read 2 words and then go off on his own tangent somewhere, and I'm like sitting there panicking, and I'm like, why the fuck is Naren not sticking to the goddamn script? I'm like, where do I go from there? So yeah, then afterwards I was like, yeah, there's no. I mean, it's better off we don't script for Naren, because then I mean, we might as well just leave some guides and leads for him, and then we abandon the entire process for all of us. So yeah, I think that's how we evolve and go on with it.
Yeah, I think
So-
the advice that you guys said works not just for a show like ours, where 4 people are just talking irreverently, but for anything at all, right? Just give it time. I think these things do evolve. Like I always like to say, to whoever is listening, take your favorite show, be it a podcast or a YouTube show or whatever it is, and go back and listen to the first couple of episodes or read the first articles or whatever by that same person, host or whatever, and you'll see there is such a difference, right, over time. Or even if you listen to if you've been following a certain creator over time, you'll see how they have gotten better, what has changed and stuff like that. Just yesterday I was watching Hot Ones by Sean Evans, and I think I think the concept of the show is great, but where you ask increasingly difficult questions as the wings get hotter. But one thing that I was always impressed by was the extraordinary level of research that the team does when they come to the table. So you have questions there that nobody else has asked, and I think the standard of that has just kept increasing with each season. So I mean, I use that as an example. You can really extrapolate that to anything. Like Amit Verma's Seen and the Unseen is a very popular example that we like to say. But anybody else, just keep doing it, have fun, learn along the way. That's pretty much
Yeah.
about it.
question,
I'm going to
actually.
bring up an audience question here from at Red Nivaram. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but anyway, is there any episode from the 300 that stands out for you as the most enjoyable?
Enjoyable to record or enjoyable to, I don't know, listen back to? I suppose that's,
Let's pick one
we can-
each now. What is there? Like, I think we'll cover the spectrum.
Appa, I'm not
like,
going to cover-
like
I'm
Srikeit
not-
said. Like Srikeit said, one of the things that we know is that if by the second or third person, if they've not said something, you will automatically find the contrarian thing to say just to keep the show going. Right? So I think we'll cover the spectrum by the end.
I will ban episode 100 because I think that was just an absolute hoot in so many different ways. The one that we actually
Also, I
recorded
was
live
not
at
there,
Ulari.
so it doesn't
I
And
know,
you were not
Tony
there,
was
of
not
course. Quick save that. Let's see. What was something that was enjoyable to record or enjoyable to listen? I'm actually looking through the entire list of episodes that we've done.
Okay,
I've always
why don't I
enjoyed-
go first? Why don't I go first?
Yeah, go for it, Tony.
I'm gonna pick the most obvious one, which was the ice cream episode that Naren did. Right?
You
And-
took mine, dude.
No, because it was brilliant, because I was like, okay, Naren's a serious guy. and like he's gonna have a point somewhere at some point during this episode, and like I think
Yeah.
about 10 minutes in, I realized no, like he's come with. I mean, no, it's just like that Turkish guy who's like offering you the ice cream and taking it away. He's just like literally going on a dance. And I am suddenly panicking and I'm like, okay, listen, like I have to ask the serious questions here and don the role of someone who's trying to put some structure to this absolutely hilarious but also like
The other
ultimately
hilarious
pointless
part
thing.
of this was
Oh,
all of
wow.
us have opened. Also, the other hilarious part of that ice cream episode is we've all discovered that around the same time that Naren doesn't have anything more. Okay, and then we have all opened the Wikipedia pages, separate web pages, and our search patterns are also roughly similar. We're almost independently all reading of the same freaking document, and we're like, this ice cream pack, this flavor is the most popular. This thing is the most popular. I'm like, it was the most hilarious impromptu. Like that's what, right? The question was, which is the most enjoyable 300 of the 300 episodes, and definitely the ice cream one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other ones which are like profound and like really deep and like very this thing.
Yeah.
Enjoyable. I'll also agree
Yeah,
with the ice cream.
I think it was as fun to record as it was to listen back to, because we were all like, we're like, wait, is this happening? Like, are we under the influence of something that we are not aware of? Even during the recording. It was
Yeah.
It's the most sober stoned episode ever.
Best sober stoned episode, and that's great. Again, great tagline for Simplified. I really enjoy the year-end episodes. There's always done in a festive kind of way, especially when we used to do them in the studio and we used to pick them out of a hat, if you guys remember.
Chit chat.
And
Yeah, that's the first time I
Chit
came
Chat,
on
Chit
Simplified
Chat.
actually.
Chit Chat, exactly, yeah, and there's special meaning for that. There are some parts of specific episodes I remember, like the pun run during the James Webb episode, which
that
had
was beautiful,
Srikeit,
yeah.
I really kind of enjoyed doing that to Srikeit. I mean, you know what I mean.
Thanks.
I also, before when we used to record songs, right? So Naren, this is sort of like a weird confession. There are times when we're randomly humming songs over the course of the day. I actually still sometimes sing the Gurunath Mayappan song that we made for episode 2, Just Be an Enthusiast. I still say, just be enthusiast. I'm like, what? It's such a terrible song. Why? So that would be, for those of you wondering what that is, that was back in July 2015, an episode titled Professional Enthusiasm. I really like that episode. I actually thought that the first episode, the Greek economic crisis, was a bit random, but I really like the way that this thing came out. The second episode, Professional Enthusiasm, because he said something random also over there, no? Like he was part of the Chennai Super Kings or something because he was a professional enthusiast, some rubbish like this. Anyway, that is...
Yeah.
He was the India Cement's son-in-law.
Let's not get too deep into that right now. Somebody is petitioning for Naren to have ice cream. Unfortunately, Naren is missing a few digits on his feet. He is lactose intolerant.
Oh man.
No, I'm so wife has some
Vinyl
very
records
strict-
conversation. Oh, Sweta, that's Bertie.
Bertie.
Birdie.
Yeah, I think all the
Shweta
guests,
says Rudy, but Rudy's Bertie. Yeah.
Rudy. Yeah, Rudy's. We had some great guests on. I think that's. I mean, we had. Some,
I think that's the other thing. I think we can also, the other question that we can go on is, I mean, while the most enjoyable episodes, which is the best guest that we have had on? Like, I mean, for each of us, we can also go through that. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the conversation with Zen when we spoke about the board game Shasan. I really enjoyed that conversation. It wasn't simplified. It wasn't very funny or anything, but it just blew my mind that this is what really making a game, marketing a game, and he was so articulate. He brought in so many things from several other aspects. I really enjoyed that conversation with Zen. To me, that's Zen one I can think of. Yeah, there are so many others, of course.
The other one, the one that I enjoyed a lot was I forget the doctor's name, our internist.
Nitin Arora, Dr. Nitin Arora.
Yeah. Dr. Nitin one, I mean, like those two conversations where he just talked, like, I mean, the thing is, those conversations where actually, like, I feel from my perspective, like, I enjoyed the Zen conversation, but I had done a lot of research in those areas which he was talking about. But like the internist conversation, I was just learning new stuff on the episode, right? Like when he was talking. So while he was talking about, like, especially the stuff about how, like, there is noise pollution and how they kind of like do the research to understand how the noise levels in the ICUs need to be reduced and stuff like that. Like, I mean, stuff like that was really like eye-opening, and like just understanding that was like mind-blowing in its own way. So that was an amazing conversation for me. Yeah.
And the latest interview that was done. So I wasn't there because I was on vacation at the time, but I really enjoyed that. I was listening to it as a listener. I really enjoyed the one that you guys did with Sidin. I could have, that was such a good episode. And we must give a shout out to the guy who has been statistically the person who is likely to win this poll in my mind is Utsav, because he's been on some 3-4 times. I don't remember. Every time he was so funny.
Yeah. The Sidhan episode could have gone on for 4 hours, right? But actually, like, regarding the guest episodes, I want to pick one of your earlier ones when I was not hosting. I think it was episode 146. You did it on making crosswords with some guy called Tony Sebastian. Sorry, yes. I had to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is another one also, I think much earlier, called Wiki Quickie with another guest also, which was quite nice.
No, actually, when you go through the list of guests that we've had, there are actually some pretty big people who we spoke to. We spoke to Girish Narayan Das long back, if you remember, when he was making the AIB sketches. We spoke to Danny and Abish. Also. Raghav
more
from
recently
Headphones.
We spoke to Meghnad as well, and like
Meghnad, that wasn't more recent. Actually, I mean, he was there before as well, right? Ajit Bhaskar was there for scientists. So we've done a fair few guests, and I think we've all learned something from them. I think guests also like the informality that we bring to the table. I think it's
so which brings me to the next question, right? How do you see the evolution of the show as is it like a one-to-one correlation with how you've evolved as a person, or has there been a different sort of arc to the evolution of Simblified that you sort of see?
If you're asking me this question, I would definitely say yes. I think as each of us are getting older, wiser, and I mean, we know each other outside this podcast, right? And how we think and what problems we are going through or what's going on in our heads. And I can see that kind of reflecting in the show. I said this on episode 3 during the Amit Verma interview as well, that I mean, there are some episodes which tend to become profound, and even within the funny episodes, we bring in that thing as well. And just the fact that we have just lived more as people ourselves, doing different kind of things, right? I think that's very important. Whether it's each of us has different hobbies, different interests, different things that we do, and we bring all that to the table. So I think all this I can definitely see Simplified itself maturing, I'm not sure the right word, or evolving, I'm not sure. Changed, let's say.
One question I think which Tony is trying to ask, I just rephrase it, is has Simplified changed you as a person? Because
I'll jump in right with 2 points. One is, just to answer my own question, is that as much as people won't see it, there are jokes that I like refrain from making because like I in some senses evolved as a person, although it's not apparent to the audience, right? But at on the other level, there have been several Simplified episodes which have like had a profound effect on me. And like I'll go back to Naren's Stoicism episode, right, which is a revelation in the time in which it came. I think it's 2019 or maybe 2020, much before the pandemic. But I was going through this phase where like, I mean, you sort of tend towards atheism and all. And now Stoicism has been taken over by tech bro, so it's become like one of those random things. But like Naren did it at a time when I wasn't exposed to it, and I was like, oh, okay, this actually sort of makes sense. And Stoicism is not just about like being a cynic and not doing stuff. It's actually action oriented, and it had a profound effect on my life, I would say.
Yeah, similarly for me as well. I think several years ago we interviewed a therapist for one of the shows. Zen and Avanti we interviewed for Marbles Lost and Found. That was the show at that point of time. And the conversation with Zen and Avanti actually, like, I mean, prior to that, I knew about therapy and I knew that this existed. I never thought it was something that could be useful for me. And that was actually part of my overall process of pushing me to try go and seek out therapy for myself. So like on a personal level, that was majorly this thing. But on like how I have changed my approach to stuff is, The other thing, the main thing for me why Simplified was like such a natural fit is because I like reading about random stuff, right? Like I literally am this guy who will go and find a random Wikipedia article and read about it and obsess about it and all that stuff. Like, and like I think the very first time I did that was when I joined Simplified. Like I was reading about the cocaine hippos
Yeah, in Colombia.
in Colombia, and like how the hippos were not there, and this guy Pablo Escobar brought them there and all that. And this would normally be a fact that I would read about and like maybe talk to a couple of friends about. And then I was like, oh my God, I have this outlet where I can actually make this into an episode, right? And so all of these different things that I read about, like I tend to like bookmark them. And now, like earlier I would be like reading them and whatever, keeping them in my mind. Now I bookmark them and I'm like, this can be a Simplified episode. This can be a Simplified episode, right? So that's the one big change that I'd seen for like how I have changed because of Simplified in that way.
Yeah, for me, I don't think there's a particular episode that has affected me as much as it's the fact that we've done this for 300 episodes has given me confidence that, I mean, long back, I mean, must have been around episode 40, 50 or something, that, hey, okay, this is something that I can actually keep up week on week. It gave me the confidence that, and also the fact that people were actually listening. Like we always joke about the fact that probably 4 or 5 people listen to our shows, but it gave me the confidence. It gave me a weird sense of responsibility in a way. And I think that, I mean, I won't lie. I think it is the success of doing Simplified. I won't say success of Simplified, but success of continuing and consistently doing Simplified, that I got the courage to start another content project with Tony, which went on unbroken for 200 issues.
4 years. 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. 4 years, 2009. Oh yeah, wow. So yeah, I think discipline is, I know it's a weird takeaway to have from Simplified, but yeah, discipline, I suppose, would be mine. Naren, your turn. Please rescue us.
No, but like that also brings like one other life-changing thing that I discovered, right? As I get older, I am beginning to suspect that I've had ADHD all my life, which was undiagnosed. But one way for me to sort of keep a commitment device is to have someone at, sort of to commit to, right? So if it was Third Slip, like I would be like, I can't let Chuck down, or if it's Simplified,
accountability,
like, we have to keep
accountability of the
work. But like I've started several projects which have like just been like 2 or 3, and then who cares, right? So like,
I think that's
it's an excellent
for anyone.
device.
Yeah, for a big tip for anyone who's listening, watching, whatever. If you are starting a content project, try and get somebody else involved. Accountability really helps. Yeah.
My other takeaway is this, right? So the three of you are virtually impossible to offend or just, or disappoint.
Hey, I'm annoyed with that. What do you say?
Yeah. So these guys will laugh at anything, and they're really kind, and they'll never, they'll never be offended or whatever. It helped me be, sort of lose my reserves of a lot of things. So I think that I used to be a little reticent about approaching on some subjects, saying things. Now I just go for it. So there is this very nice episode on Seen and the Unseen where Amit Verma interviews the author Jerry Pinto.
The conservator.
Yeah. So in that, Jerry Pinto tells about a person named Abe Faria. So Abe Faria was a priest from Goa back in the Portuguese days, and he was a really talented guy. And so he was his grievance was that priests of Goan origin, they were all Portuguese subjects, were not allowed to rise above a particular level in the Catholic Church. So Abe Faria thought that was wrong, and he was very eloquent on it, and his eloquence impressed a lot of people. And he was, he was invited to address the royalty in Portugal. So he went. His father, who was also, in the clergy, he went too, and everything was, set up. He's there. He's addressing the royals, and it's a grand setting. And when he's about to say, he finds himself frozen. He can't say anything. No words come out. He's in a panic. And his father was just sitting below in the pit, where out of the view of the royals. He tells him in Konkani, "Katorre bhaji." Katorre bhaji means cut the vegetable. He
Cut the
says,
vegetables. Yeah.
yeah, just go ahead and do your thing. And to a great extent, Simplified has helped me Katorre bhaji. Right? It is, I can just say anything or think anything or just go off on tangents and get into a rant or get into anything without being worried of what my co-host will think about me or what my audience. So actually, yeah, a lot of thanks to the audience as well, but yeah, mostly to the
No,
co-host.
I think that's a
Yeah,
great
no, but
point.
I think that sort of elaboration is basically that if you were a chef and like you turned up one day at your job, would you be like, I'm not inspired enough to cook something? All you need to do is start cutting the vegetables and the thing
Oh.
will come automatically to you, right? That's
Wow.
the he did explain it in
Oh,
little
okay,
bit
that
more
way. But
detail,
when
so
you
I was
said
just
it, it
like,
felt more
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah, because
like cutting
I think
onions.
there was one
tearing
of
up,
the
okay.
there's actually a Seth Godin there was one of the Seth Godin emails that I've actually got it saved, and I keep it like as a note which I look at often when I'm like struggling with stuff. And it's pretty much on those lines, which talks about it like says start small, start now. That's much better than start big, start later. One advantage is that you don't have to start perfect. You can merely start, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about like I mean, the thing is we are often like very paralyzed by fear, saying that I'm going to start something and it's going to be terrible and it's going to be horrible and it's going to be whatever. But because of this like environment that we have, where we've all first got each other's back, and the second is, I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a no judgment zone, right? Like that allows us to have that just ability to start and just say that, okay, we'll wing it, we'll figure out something. And it, I mean, along the way, after enough trial and error, after screwing up a lot, we've wound up with something that, yeah, this is actually pretty good as people who want to listen to it also.
Yeah, and
So
as you can
Yeah.
see, we keep iterating and fixing things along the way, including our audio problems. As you can see, this is a perpetual problem on Simplified when you have 4 guests. No, it's kind of interesting that you say that, Srikeit. I think I'm almost now thinking like, does this give me confidence to do other things in life without worrying about whether I have the perfect start, right? I can always tell myself like, hey, you started Simplified long back. Not that it's a raging success or anything right now, but the fact is you started and you iterated along the way. This might also be like that. And maybe when I tell clients as well, like, hey, it's okay, let's just start at one particular place and we'll keep learning and stuff along the way. That's I suppose that is
no,
I
and
guess
that
something is
yeah,
internalized.
that is actually a great point, and with clients also. And I think it's something that a lot of, I mean, especially in our professional lives, in multiple spheres of our professional life, I think it's extremely important to learn like there's a lot of expectation of perfection or excellence right from the get-go. And like what is often lost in that process, to understand that excellence is often created by iterations and failure, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you need a lot of that grind to get to that level of perfection. I mean, it's not even perfection. To get to any level of like excellence or get to any level of like quality, you need to go through that grind. And sometimes it might lead to something, sometimes it might not, right? Like, I mean, Mary Curie got her Nobel Prize but died of cancer because again she tried her iterations with
Okay.
radioactive substances. So yeah, I mean, that's how the
Wish you did
process
not
goes.
end on that particular example, but we will.
Yeah.
We will.
No, so I have two questions. One sort of real and one hypothetical. Is that I mean, you've started with a podcast, you've done a few versions, but what makes you excited to do the 345th episode, right, or 312th, or 287th for that matter, right? Like, you've done enough and more of this. Like, what do you think like keeps Simplified going? Why are we still doing this? That is the real question. And the hypothetical one is that if Simplified were more conventionally successful, which is that after 300 episodes we had like, I don't know, 50,000
Amit Verma numbers.
lakh of listeners. Yeah. Do you think it would still have been the same show? So whichever one you want to tackle, and whoever wants to go.
I'll tackle the second thing. Yeah, I'm going to go with the second question. I think
Go for it.
the four of us wouldn't have it any other way. I think whatever the scale of the show was, I think we would be deeply uncomfortable if we were pulled off into various other directions. And I know we've had those kind of conversations before as well, so I know where your heads are at respectively. So I think whether we had 1,000 listeners, whether we had 20,000 listeners, whether we had 1 lakh, I don't think this would have changed, because I would really like to think that this is, I mean, whatever we are doing, that's what's got the 1 lakh people in, and I wouldn't necessarily change. Now, if the question were, if you do this, you can go from 1 lakh to 10 lakh. No, I don't think so. I don't think we as a collective would have done that, even if it were, whatever, lucrative or something like that. So that's why I want to
So
answer.
sorry,
Yeah.
there is this beautiful scene in this random Malayalam movie called Ividam Swargamana, where this guy Srinivasan plays an amicus curiae for a court. Okay, so this guy is waiting for him to come, but like he's like, I need to do something, and he goes to one junction and starts speaking, right? And like zero people are listening to him, right? And then this guy basically asks him, sir, like you are speaking important things, but no one's listening to you. Don't you think like there is you need to do something different? It's like, if I want to attract an audience, I'll just take my clothes off, but that's not my intent, right? Like, I mean, I'm not putting Simplified in the same sort of rarefied spectrum, but I thought it is a brilliant scene to say, like, I think we've been very conscious of the fact that we don't want to go viral or have a large audience, right? So I mean, yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, go on, Srikeit. Yeah,
no,
you
so
answer.
the point that I mean, on that and on a related point also, like wanting to quote, like I think Ravish Kumar, when he won the Magsaysay Award, he said this thing about, like, I mean, he was talking about speaking truth to power, and I mean, the question that was posed to him was that, why do you do that when you're obviously fighting for a losing cause? There's no point, like, I mean, in that context, you're not going to be able to like get that. I mean, right now, whatever you're saying is not going to make any difference to the country, because anyway the country is going a certain way and all that stuff. And the quote that he gave at that point of time was that every battle is not fought to be won. Sometimes it is fought to say that you were on the battlefield, right?
Wow.
That there was someone on the battlefield to fight. But I mean, to take it, I mean, we're not on that level, for one thing, as a podcast. But the one thing is that, what I see as a parallel for Simplified is that there are topics that, like, I mean, the last episode that we talked about, I wanted to talk about this one small island, which is like a territorial dispute between the US and Canada. All right, like, we talk about from cocaine hippos to random stuff that we all find interesting. Like, Naren found stoicism interesting. If someone read a book sometime and found it interesting, we read about like the different like events that are going on. We find it interesting. So, I mean, for us, and again, this podcast, I feel, is like for us, but for the other people who think similarly to us, and who therefore find it resonating to us, it is like that space where we can come and talk about the stuff that we find interesting, right? And we can like talk about it freely and all that stuff. So that's where I see this particular journey being, and why we are important here. But to address the first question that you were saying, that the first question about like what excites you for like the 350th or 500th episode and all that stuff, I think it's the two conflicting points. One, that from what I remember of Chuck and Naren's episode 1 to when I joined in, to episode 100, to when Tony joined in, to now, the podcast has evolved, right? We've evolved so much in the way that we have, like, the format of the podcast, the discussions that we have, the conversations that we have, we've continuously kept evolving over the time, like from scripted, purely fact-based, where we were very strict on the simplification of stuff and all that, from there to like the analysis to opinion and all that stuff that we insert into the stuff. We've evolved the podcast over time. So I'm excited to see where that evolution will go, like over the next 100, 200 episodes on one level. And like, while I say that on one side, the other side is even if irrespective of the evolution, the fact that we get to hang out once every week or once every 2 weeks, right? Like, where we get to come and talk together and like speak to each other. And that itself, that act of getting together and speaking itself is the joy. So I don't care if it's like 100, 200, 300 episodes from now. I know for a fact that 5 years from now, I'll still want to get together with the three of you guys and have a conversation. So that's always going to be the case. So that's where I'd say is like what makes me excited for like that 100, 200 episodes from now kind of situation.
Yeah, quick coda on the whole, before I throw to Naren, quick coda on the whole Ravish Kumar thing. I think it's fair to say that we are very comfortable where we are, and we actually like really don't broach difficult subjects as a matter of choice, right? And like we are very comfortable admitting that all four of our probably mileages vary, and like we take the most comfortable barrier and don't speak about how things are going to shit in the country or whatever, right? So sorry, Naren, you were coming in, and like what keeps you going, or whatever you want to add on.
We've it's almost like it's in 3 dimensions. So one dimension is the subject itself, right? So it's like simplified is almost like a scratch card. You don't know what you're going to get when you scratch it, right? And
try
so
again
it's
later.
always there. You want
Better luck next time.
No,
Yeah,
one
better
thing
luck
that we do get is taglines to Simplified every episode. Yeah, go on. Naren.
That is one. And oftentimes, so it's far better than the usual scratch card in that you get a winner far more frequently. Winner in which ways, right? So one is the subject itself. One is in the humor. So we have a different brand of humor. It is not just jokes. It is not just it's just not witty repartee. It's not that. It's a combination of many things. It's often just the absurdness of. So when we are talking about something, it because of the four of us, the topic often goes into really absurd alleys, and that absurdity itself brings out things about the topic that that we didn't suspect existed. Number one, and number two, we end up having a lot of fun about it. So that is that's another axis of that.
Yeah.
And the third axis is when you actually prepare, and we do prepare, and if you're going to talk about something you read up, you do end up learning a lot about many things. So I mean, I don't know if our audiences are that lucky, but as hosts, I think we become a little more knowledgeable.
One thing.
No. So sorry, check. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. Like when you spoke about the very different brand of humor, one thing that makes me very proud, and I had this realization, I don't know, a few months back or something, thinking that we are Simplified is probably the best podcast representation of the Twitter humor of the golden years, challenged possibly only by bits and pieces. That brand of randomness. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah.
So I have a question specifically for Naren, right? So Naren, I think like one of the things that at least
sorry, one second, Tony. Before we move into another question, I'm seeing the question that Shweta has asked, and you can ask Naren the question, but Shweta, we will go and come back to your question and talk about the hardware part. It's not very complex. We'll address that though. Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah. So Naren, my sort of thing is that we've evolved, right? As in like the three of us have grown well into our 30s and like have started seeing gray wherever we have hair. Which is like too many places, which is where you don't want it, and not enough in places where you do. But anyway, like my forehead's creeping up as we speak. But my question is like in terms of an intellectual growth, right? You sort of move from a school where it is eclectic to probably a college where you've sort of gotten into an entrance exam to sort of rarefied, or like you always pitch yourself as sort of intellectually wanting to grow with people higher than you, right? Like if you were playing chess, you would probably want to play with someone at the same level or higher so that you learn more. You would barely want to play with someone like who's much weaker than you, right? But like in that sense, I see a lot of intellectual humility in you, which is that like you could be spending this time with people who are like, thrice as smarter
like
or
Amit Verma,
insights or life experience, etc.
That is the most flattering thing it's ever.
No, I mean it's true, right? Like I mean, I have no qualms in accepting that.
Yeah,
like
true,
I think Chuck once, if you remember, that Pan asked Mohan, who is another one of our like old friends, as in like he's a pro vice chancellor of a university, asking him, Mohan, are we your CSR? And some kind of a question to you, Naren, right? Like what is, I mean, how did you cultivate the intellectual humility? Has it actually reaped rewards for you? And like, why would you want to spend time
hang out with us?
Yeah, exactly.
No, well, I mean the one thing. So I've hung around with a lot of quote unquote intellectuals. Okay, and so they have, most of them, not all, most of them share two characteristics, both of which I despise. One is that they are overbearing, right? So they want to teach you things. They're not really listening to. And second, for some reason, it is inversely proportional, like intellectual ability inversely proportional to their ability to take a joke. Literally none of these gigantic brainy people have the ability to laugh at themselves. I value that very, very highly in people in general. Like, you did something silly and you're the first person to laugh at that. And I'm talking about silly in an intellectual way, right? I mean, most of us would be happy to laugh if we stumbled and fell, or if we wore a bad looking, shirt or something like that. But if you said something and I prove to you that your thought processes are not wrong, I mean, not correct or something like that, I'm pretty confident that the three of you will probably think about it, and if it is right, you will joke about it, laugh at yourselves, and sort of look at it in another way. Very, very few people have that ability. Like, and also be sharp minds like you guys are. So,
Oh.
I mean, it's
Yeah. No, that's a
yeah.
great
I
point,
mean,
Naren. Actually, if you think about it, like, to be very honest, I have no qualms admitting it. Like, for a time slightly earlier in my 20s and stuff, I used to be in a place where I was a lot more sensitive about stuff, and laughing at myself was like a little bit more difficult. And I
yeah,
really have to
hurts,
credit
right?
like it, yeah, I
Mm.
really have to credit like you guys in that way, where I know these guys are all super smart, but they have no qualms about laughing at themselves. And through the podcast and through this thing, it's like personal growth, where you learn that, you know what, like, yes, we all don't know much, we all are like trying to figure our way out through life. And in this context, like when we are doing this, if we make mistakes, yes, you can be offended and you can be defensive, but it's easier if you can just laugh at yourself and allow everyone else also to laugh with you. And then afterwards you can move on and learn something new, right? So it's just, the whole process becomes so much more easier on yourself, and as well as
Yeah.
like so much more entertaining as well as content, if you think about it. So
Yeah.
I think, like,
Yeah.
yeah, overall that has
I mean,
always
it
made a,
changes you as a person. It
yeah,
it makes you so much less stressed, right? So
yeah,
you are willing to laugh at yourself in the presence of myself, Chuck, and Tony. You're also willing to laugh yourself when we are not around. It makes you a better
precisely,
person, 100%. No
yeah,
doubt about
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it.
think this is also a reflection of the kind of inspirations that we have. Like I said, like again, that early Twitter era or whatever it is, right? I think a lot of folks that we admired whose writing we grew. I mean, Naren, I count you as among those inspirations, by the way. Autobiography
I
of an
used
Ordinary
to
Man.
admire Naren like that.
but yeah.
And yeah,
So
I
I think
think
we should
a lot
address
of this is
Shweta's
actually,
question. Oh, sorry, you're
yeah.
not done. My bad. I thought you were done.
No, no,
Huh, go
no, no.
on.
That's fine. No, no. All I was saying was, I think that's still like, when I started this show, I didn't have any pretensions like, oh, this is going to be like the best show out there or something. So let me just like make things easier for myself by admitting, like, let that be like very upfront. Like, this is like going to be a bit of an indulgence. We might make mistakes along the way or whatever it is, and I think that has just continued throughout the show. But yeah, I think that little bit of I don't know whether talking about humility makes you whether that's pompous. So I will leave this at that and quickly move on to address the questions that have come in.
Yeah. So Shweta asked the question about, as podcasters record from home setups mostly, what hardware do you strongly recommend for recording, mics, other equipment? So Shweta, the reality of the situation is very simply that we are. I mean, yes, we record. We've since the pandemic have moved to recording mostly from home, especially now that earlier I was in another country, now I'm in another country, so I have no option to go to the studio whatsoever. I'm no longer based in Bombay, but yeah. So in that context, what initially we started doing when we were recording was just use whatever the hell mics we could use. Like I used to use like my headset mic and record for the most part, like a large part through the pandemic. But post that, I think the one upgrade that we all have gotten are like podcast quality mics. and they're fairly inexpensive. Like they're not really very pricey. Like they cost like maybe $1,000 or a couple of grand or so. I mean, just plugging that into your system using, yes, the other thing that we do is we use local recordings where we record like we record on our own computers as well, which the generous folks at IVM take and mix for us and kind of create the amazing sound.
Generous and patient
Generous and patient. Yes, extremely patient. And I honestly, I mean, we've talked about all the reasons why our podcast has stuck around for as long as it has. I think one key reason we have to, like, one of the most critical reasons is the folks at IVM who have continued to produce.
We'll get to that. We'll definitely address that.
Yeah,
and we want to give a long shout out to that.
So from the hardware point of view, I think we have also evolved from using what was that free software that we used to use, Chuck, where we used to record by ourselves. There was some free software
Audacity?
app, no. Before that, when during the pandemic, we used to record on some Jin or some.
Yes.
Jitsi.
Jitsi. Yeah, we used to record on that. And then we kind of
audio syncing 4 voice files. Yes, all that praise goes to the IVM team who does that. Shweta, not when you're starting off, you really need just I would recommend just get a simple mic, spend 2K, 3K. In fact, I think the first podcast mic that I bought is currently with Naren. I gave it to you after I upgraded to the Rode because I did a lot of online meetings and stuff like that. Let me treat myself to a nice mic. And apart from that, you need a quiet room. That is pretty much about it. So mic, quiet room, and Audacity are all that you really need. Audacity is a free software and really good software for recording audio. And then after that comes the actual difficult part, which is content, and then the tougher part, which is actually editing and stitching things together. You really don't need anything more than this to begin with. Of course, if you're going out in the field and doing recordings like that, then you need one of those portable recorders like a Zoom or something like that. That Zoom is not related to the software Zoom, by the way, and things like that. But for home setup, this is pretty much it. You don't need anything beyond this. Right?
So having had some experience outside of IBM, like editing our own podcast for bits and pieces. So one of the things is obviously you have a Zoom recording or whatever that is on, and the local tracks as well. And then you can do either, right? You can edit all the local tracks and sync them and edit and stuff like that. But usually a Zoom recording is fine unless someone's like internet is glitching and stuff, right? So 2 tips which are like practical is, one is that over the pandemic I realized that actually instead of judging people on how they dress or present themselves in office, you started judging people based on their Wi-Fi connectivity and how good their mic is, right? Like, I mean, obviously if you're in that particular space, if you remember, like in a conference room, everyone be trying to connect a bloody laptop to a projector and we would all be laughing at IT together, right? And then it suddenly changed that you were all in like remote locations and trying to present, and no one has empathy for that one poor soul who's got like bad internet suddenly or like has a crappy like microphone, right? So I think like if you are willing to invest about, I would say like 6K on an outfit you wear for a day, you can spend as much on a mic, right? So like I mean 2K is probably a lower end mic. If you're going to buy one and you think that you're going to do episodes like frequently, think of it as an outfit that you would spend on, right? And like spend that much, and like it makes a huge difference, because at the end of the day, a podcast is a very audio medium, right? And that investment will pay off significantly. And I've seen this because on Bits and Pieces, we've got at this point around 45 different people. And like the people who get the most hate are the ones who've like used their regular earphones or something like that, right? And for no reason, like they might be making an excellent point, but at the end of the day, like you're going to judge them based on the quality of how they sound, right? And in terms of editing, we started with Audacity, we moved on to Reaper. I don't know what the actual great producers at IVM use, but I think Reaper is simple enough for you to do, and like basically edit off Zoom and use locals only if someone's glitching at a particular point in time, because that's the easiest way to do it. Otherwise you'll go crazy. I've stayed up at least 3 nights editing an episode just to get it perfect based on locals. But like now I sort of use just edit out it off Zoom, and it doesn't take more than, let's say, 2 to 3 hours if the podcast is about 50 minutes. So yeah, and the other thing is that when you're editing your own podcast, it is brilliant because when you start off, you will hate the sound of your own voice. So you'll automatically cut off bits that don't gel well. And, at that point in time, put on your marketer lens and, sort of put yourself in the listener's shoe and say, would someone enjoy listening to this bit? And one thing I don't think we do on Simplified, but I've done a little bit on bits and pieces, is that you can actually like change sections around, right? It doesn't work for Simplified because it's linear, but like if you're doing segments wise, put the first strongest segment right up there, right? Like it's usually the case that if you're doing a banter based podcast, the best bits happen in the middle when you're sort of getting warmed up and used to it and stuff like that. But put it right up top, right? Because like that's what will fetch you an additional 20 minutes of listening in this day and age, I would assume, because you will need to hit a traffic signal for you to change the podcast, right? But if you've hooked them in the first 10 minutes, I think they'll continue listening to you till the end of the drive.
I did not know you guys did that. I did not know.
Yeah, I mean,
Inverted pyramid style of editing, no? Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly.
By the way, our professional producers have told us that they use Avid Pro Tools, which I have no idea what it is. Reaper is free. I don't know about Avid Pro Tools, but like use whatever works for you, basically.
And now, so if you have more questions, please do send them in. But now I think we will take a moment to generously thank IVM for having us on for 8 years. We've had some amazing producers and sound engineers over the years. So shout out to all of you guys. From Anthony, who is like who's losing hair by the episode, dealing with us right now. Actually, come to think of it, a fair bit of our producers are actually. But never mind. I don't want to do a correlation.
Abbas somewhere is like, has this aged well?
Has this aged well? Well done.
Sometimes we really should sit down and write down a chronology of all our producers, no? Like I think that document is required to make sometime.
Honors list. Hey, thanks, Bala. There was Abbas, there was Darius, if you remember. I think Darius was our first producers. Naveen Narona for a while. Yeah. Yeah. Then who else? Like then there was Vinay. Vinay was the producer during the pandemic.
May herself, right?
May herself was there for a while, long back. There was another person called Sharanya who stepped in for a while. So we have had, I think if you do 300 episodes, you go through a fair along the way. Yeah,
but there is one thing. One thing that I want to say. Yeah. No, the one thing I have to say about IVM, right? This, so they were quality conscious. The production levels were high. Right from the beginning. I remember Chuck and I and Srikeit also, we used to feel very overwhelmed at the fuss that these people used to make, about miles, about everything. And we, but they were so finicky about quality right from day one. So hats off to that.
I mean, we do a proper sound check every time before this happens to make sure everyone's levels and all are fine. So, and kudos to these guys for transitioning during the pandemic. Like it is an audio medium at the end of the day, and that level of quality control to try and maintain that in a distributed setting where everybody has different setup, different mic, different backgrounds. I mean, literally different backgrounds. So thank you IVM for everything that you've done.
I agree. I mean,
on the show.
And just reinforcing the point that Naren said about like, I know we've always known that we are not like the most premium talent that IVM boasts on its roster. Like we know that there are significantly better podcasters out there and better podcasts out there, and we have no problems with that. But like the commitment that IVM has shown us over the years to kind of like give us the importance and give us like great producers, great like opportunities like live episodes and our in-person live episodes, these live episodes, and like promoting us through the social channels and all that stuff has been really great, and it makes us feel like, and that's also part of the reason why we have gone on for as long, because it feels like, yeah, we're doing something more than just like faffing around, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, really grateful to IBM for that.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Amit, if you're listening to this, if you
Yes,
have brought
thank
a
you so
tear
much.
to your eye. Okay, so I think we are largely done over here. We were supposed to do
Yeah.
podcasting 101. Have we covered everything? Like, I don't know. We spoke about mics a little bit. We spoke about our journey, got senti a little bit, but also mentioned to the intro music. Okay, so this is an interesting story. The guy who actually, and I want to get him on. The guy who wrote the intro music is actually a Bollywood composer right now. So I don't listen to too much Bollywood. So I don't know. I don't know any of these movies. So his name is Gaurav Chatterjee. He's a friend of mine from Micah, batchmate. In fact, we used to be in the same band at Micah, and he was the only guy with any talent in that band. And he came in like listening to just A.R. Rahman, and we tried very hard to try and get him to play Maiden, Metallica, and things like that. So when we started the show in 2015, we needed an intro music, right? And at that point of time, I don't think any of these stock music sites were available at that point of time, or they were prohibitively expensive. So I reached out to him. He was making a transition from advertising. He used to be a VP at Mudra or something at one point of time, and he was making this transition. And then I asked him, "Hey, listen, can you just whip up something for us?" So anyway, he's according to Wikipedia, he has a Wikipedia page right now. Simplified is not mentioned over here. We should change that, by the way. He is primarily recognized for composing music for films like Jai
Can we
Mamili,
get some
Ginni Wits,
Wikipedia admin on the podcast?
Aafat-e-Ishq, and Jalsa. And for Jalsa. So again, he's been nominated and stuff as well. So thank you,
Jalsa.
Gaurav.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sari Gama Padanisa Are Karo Sara Jalsa. Jalsa.
This I do not know. It's
What? Why doesn't Srikeit know
Hindi
this?
language.
Devi Sri Prasad. Come on.
Yeah,
DST,
yeah.
man.
Okay, then
Telugu land represent.
So that is the intro music, and I have the full file with me. The full MP3 that Gaurav composed. It's not just the few 10 seconds that you guys hear. The full file, if anyone needs, I don't know.
And it'll be on Spotify, which will fetch us one.
I was going to say NFT, but yeah, let's go with let's go with Spotify. So, are there any other podcasting 101 tips we can give? No, not really, right? Just listen back to the episode that we did with Amit for number 300, and then the little episode that we did at the end of last year. I forgot what it was called, where we had given all that podcasting gyan. I think
the monkey shoulder episode.
The monkey shoulder episode.
But the one thing I'd say is, like, honestly,
go forth and create content.
A simple way of like just understanding how good podcasts work is to listen to a whole bunch of good podcasts, right? Like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of good content out there. See how, like, I mean, so many guys are like, I mean, we tend to ramble, but a lot of other guys tend to like have such structured podcasts where they have like got these techniques about how they lead in and how they lead out and all that stuff. So just pick your topic and you will probably find like a ton of great podcasts on it. So just listen to as many as you can, and that will itself give you a lot of education on how to make good podcasts.
Yeah, and see what inspires you. So what moves you? Do you like it's very clear that we guys do this for time pass, but there are several others for which podcasting is their bread and butter. So they approach it a lot more seriously. Maybe the topic is more serious, or the way in which they approach is more investigative in nature, or whatever the case may be. So figure out whatever your vibe is, because the answer to can I do X is invariably yes. Right, so just go ahead, try it out, have fun, don't be scared of evolving along the way. That's
and for the record, Srikeit didn't get a mic till about 2 months ago. So
hey, not 2 months, okay?
Screw the mic tip.
6 months, okay. But no, it didn't really become a problem till the IVM guys like picked it out and started harassing me about it. Okay, till then, like till then it was fine. But no, it has made a huge.
Till then, Srikeit had some Barbie doll there claiming that it was a professional mic while he was using his regular computer.
Okay, guys, I think we have
reached the natural end of this.
I think we have reached the natural end to this. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, please ask, or I would say forever hold your silence. You might need to wait another 2.5 years till we reach. So go ahead and do it then.
Excellent.
So yeah.
But,
so Naren, you know what to do. Thanks
Yeah.
everyone for
So
being a part
yeah,
of this.
thanks for joining. Stay safe, stay live, and stay simplified.
Stay
See
Stay
you
live.
next
live.
week.
Staying alive.
Staying
Staying
alive.
alive.
Bee Gees. Okay. Bee Gee
Thanks,
music. Okay.
everyone. Bye bye.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.